Welcome back to a new video. In this series we focus on the chthonic god and goddesses. They are associated with death, the afterlife, and the fertility of the earth. They were believed to reside in the underworld, a realm that was simultaneously a place of darkness for the dead and a source of life-generating fertility. In this video we talk about all the chthonic god and goddesses. The first one we talk about is Hades. He was the god of the underworld and wealth. Hades ruled the underworld after the gods defeated the Titans. He didn't create death but managed the souls of the dead. Despite modern associations with hell, Hades wasn't evil, just serious and strict. He ensured balance in life and death. Because minerals and precious stones come from beneath the earth, he was also linked to wealth. He was often depicted as stern, calm, and detached. Unlike Zeus and Poseidon, Hades rarely meddled in mortal affairs. He preferred the solitude of the underworld and didn't care for Olympus politics or godly drama. His parents are Cronus, the leader of the Titans, and Rhea, the goddess of motherhood. Cronus swallowed his children to prevent them from overthrowing him. Hades was one of the 5 kids trapped inside until Zeus freed them. His siblings are the Olympian gods. After overthrowing the Titans, the 3 brothers drew lots to divide the cosmos. Zeus became the ruler of the sky. Poseidon became the ruler of the sea. And Hades became the ruler of the underworld. Hades didn't get banished, he just got the short straw, though he ruled his domain with power. One of the most famous stories about Hades' love life involves Persephone, daughter of Demeter. Hades abducted her to be his queen. Demeter's grief caused the earth to become barren. Eventually, a deal was struck. Persephone would spend part of the year with Hades, autumn/winter, and part with Demeter, spring/summer, leading to the origin of the seasons. Unlike his brothers Zeus and Poseidon, Hades was relatively faithful to Persephone. While he did deceive her initially, their relationship was later portrayed as more balanced, sometimes even affectionate. Hades was fair, but once a soul entered the underworld, there was no leaving. He upheld the laws of the dead with absolute seriousness. The underworld wasn't just one gloomy place, it had realms, rivers, and gates. The major realms are Tartarus, deep abyss for divine punishment, Titans, traitors. Elysium, eternal paradise for heroes and the righteous. Asphodel meadows, neutral place for ordinary souls. And fields of punishment, for the wicked but not as severe as Tartarus. And the key rivers are Styx, oaths sworn on it were binding even for gods. Lethe, river of forgetfulness. Acheron, river of pain. And Phlegethon, river of fire. There are some other figures in the underworld. Charon, a ferryman who took souls across the Styx, if they had a coin, obol, in their mouth. Thanatos, the personification of death, not the god of the dead, he worked for Hades. And the Furies, Erinyes, the enforcers of justice and vengeance within the underworld. There are some famous myths featuring Hades. Orpheus and Eurydice. Orpheus, a legendary musician, begged Hades to return his wife Eurydice. Hades agreed, but only if Orpheus walked ahead of her and didn't look back. Of course, Orpheus looked back, and she was lost forever. Sisyphus. He tried to cheat death by tricking Hades. His punishment was that he was condemned to push a boulder uphill forever. Theseus and Pirithous. These 2 heroes thought they could just walk into the underworld to kidnap Persephone. Hades tricked them into sitting on the chair of forgetfulness. They couldn't move. Theseus was later rescued by Heracles, but Pirithous remained stuck. Hades wasn't widely worshipped like Zeus or Apollo. His temples were rare, and his name was often avoided to not attract bad luck. Sacrifices were made at night and often involved black animals, especially rams. He had sacred places, especially near necromantic oracles, like Necromantian of Ephra, where people sought to communicate with the dead. When Hades was depicted, he was usually shown seated on a throne and wearing black robes or armor. He was rarely depicted among the Olympians. Hades was often depicted with Cerberus, the massive three-headed dog who guarded the gates to prevent the dead from leaving. The second one is Persephone. She is the queen of the underworld and goddess of spring. Persephone is a ruler in her own right. She judges souls, commands spirits, and enforces laws of the dead. Ancient texts show her as calm, commanding, and merciful, but never weak. She has a softer but deeper power than most Olympian goddesses. She has power over fate, life cycles, and the soul. Her original name may have been Persephata or Pherephata, likely pre-Greek in origin. Persephone can mean she who brings destruction, but as Kore, she means maiden or girl. This dual identity reflects how the ancients saw nature, nurturing and brutal, beautiful and deadly. Her mother is Demeter, the goddess of the harvest. Her father is Zeus, the leader of the Olympians. Her consort is Hades. The myth about their relations starts with an abduction. While picking flowers, Persephone is abducted by Hades, who opens the earth and takes her to the underworld. Demeter, Persephone's mother, is devastated. She refuses to let crops grow, plunging the world into famine. Zeus sends Hermes to retrieve Persephone. Hades agrees, but Persephone has eaten pomegranate seeds, binding her to the underworld. They make a compromise. Persephone spends the autumn and winter with Hades and spring and summer with Demeter. This myth explains the seasons. Even though she spent most of her time in the living world, almost all the myths occur in the underworld. Persephone and Adonis. Both Aphrodite and Persephone fell in love with the same mortal, a man called Adonis. Since they couldn't agree between them who deserves him more, Zeus divided his time between the upper world and the underworld. However, Adonis loved Aphrodite more and, when the time came, he refused to go back to Persephone's kingdom. Angered and hurt, Persephone sent a wild boar to kill Adonis, who died in Aphrodite's arms and was transformed into the anemone flower. Persephone and Mintha. The nymph Mintha was a mistress of Hades before he abducted Persephone. When Mintha boasted that she was more beautiful than Hades' new lover and that she would one day win Hades back, Persephone took care that such things should never happen and transformed her into the mint plant. Lus, another nymph who caught Hades' attention, was transformed into the white poplar tree, a tree associated with the underworld. Persephone, the influential queen. Persephone differed from Hera in an even more critical manner. Unlike her, she wasn't merely Hades' consort but also exerted considerable authority over the underworld. Persephone was central to the Eleusinian mysteries, an ancient secret religious rite that promised initiates a better afterlife. She represented initiation, rebirth, and the journey through spiritual darkness into light. Her descent was a symbolic death, and her return was a spiritual awakening. Philosophers like Plato and Pindar tied her myth to soul purification and reincarnation. Persephone was both worshipped in her maiden and queen aspects. People often prayed to her for safe passage to the afterlife and protection of crops and families. Persephone was a favorite subject in ancient and modern art. Ancient pottery often shows her rising from the earth or seated beside Hades. And modern poetry and fiction treat her as a symbol of transformation, sexual awakening, or emotional resilience. The next one is Thanatos. He is the personification of death. Thanatos isn't the god of the dead, that's Hades, or judgment, that's Minos Aeacus Rhadamanthus. He is the embodiment of death itself, especially a gentle, natural death. He was calm, patient and silent, and he had an unshakable authority. Rare moments of interaction, like wrestling Heracles, show he's capable of resistance, but not cruel or vindictive. He was feared, but respected. Even the gods couldn't resist him, but they did need him. He brings rest, mercy, and closure. He is older than most gods, a quiet reminder that even the divine must one day bow to silence. He was seen as a quiet shadow always nearby. He's not a villain. He's the one who holds the line between worlds. And he guides souls to the underworld, but without emotion. If Hades is the king, Thanatos is like the Grim Reaper, an unstoppable force. He's inevitable and impartial. He doesn't chase you, he waits. His mother is Nyx, the goddess of night, and his father is Erebus, the god of darkness. His siblings include Hypnos, the god of sleep, Moros, the god of doom and fate, and Nemesis, the goddess of vengeance. Together, they form a kind of dark pantheon that governs the inescapable aspects of mortal life: sleep, fate, aging, vengeance, and of course, death. Thanatos is the twin of Hypnos, the personification of sleep. They live in the underworld or in a cave beyond the rising sun. In many poems, death and sleep are referred to as close companions. This is where we get phrases like eternal sleep as a metaphor for death. There are some famous myths about Thanatos. The first one is the myth of Sisyphus. King Sisyphus cheated death by tricking Thanatos into chains. With Thanatos bound, no one could die. Chaos erupted. Eventually, Ares, god of war, freed Thanatos, and Sisyphus was punished in the afterlife. The second one is about Alcestis and Heracles. Alcestis offers her life to save her husband, Admetus. Thanatos arrives to claim her. Heracles wrestles Thanatos and wins, forcing Thanatos to release Alcestis and let her live again. Thanatos was not widely worshipped. There are a few temples dedicated to him, possibly because ancient Greeks were more likely to honor chthonic gods indirectly. People often invoked him in funeral rites, or in oracular and mystery cults dealing with death, fate, and the soul's journey. The Greeks didn't see death as inherently evil, it was a natural part of life's rhythm. Thanatos, in this context, represents peaceful release, not horror. He did appear in tombs and funerary art, especially with Hypnos, symbolizing rest after death. When Thanatos is pictured, he is shown as a young, handsome man with wings, sometimes holding an inverted torch or leading a soul with Hypnos beside him. Some show him struggling against Heracles, depicting death as something you can fight, but only temporarily. The fourth one is Hypnos. He is the god of sleep. His name literally means sleep in Greek. He's often portrayed as a gentle and soothing presence, sometimes winged, and usually associated with rest and dreams. He symbolizes a peaceful rest, as opposed to his brother Thanatos, death. Hypnos represents a gentle, healing, and temporary escape. Transition and vulnerability. Sleep is a state where we're at our most vulnerable, which is why the ancients treated Hypnos with a bit of awe. And the altered consciousness, because sleep often leads to dreams, Hypnos is also a gateway to the subconscious and otherworldly messages. In ancient Greek cosmology, everything had a purpose, even sleep. Hypnos isn't just there to make people rest, he's a cosmic equalizer. He restores balance between day and night, action and rest. He works in cycles, closely tied to Nyx, night, and Hemera, day, reinforcing the idea of natural order. Hypnos is the son of Nyx, the goddess of night, and sometimes Erebus, the god of darkness, depending on the source. He has a twin, Thanatos, who is the god of death, sleep and death being closely linked in Greek myth. Hypnos has a relationship with Pasithea. They are rarely mentioned in depth, but together they symbolize peaceful, dreamlike serenity. Pasithea is one of the Charites, associated with relaxation, pleasure, and hallucinatory states. Their union represents restorative sleep and the dreamy, healing side of unconsciousness. Hypnos is the father of the Oneiroi. The Oneiroi are dream spirits who serve Hypnos. The most famous are Morpheus, he shapes human dreams. Phobter, he brings nightmares and scary imagery. And Phantasos, he makes abstract, surreal, or nature-based dreams. Together, they represent different dream types, which makes Hypnos not just about sleep but about what happens inside it. Hypnos is said to dwell in a dark cave in the underworld, near Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. No sunlight or sound reaches his home, fitting for the god of sleep. Hypnos can put gods and mortals to sleep effortlessly, and he's often used as a plot device in various myths. One story is about Zeus. Hera wants to distract Zeus so the Greeks can win a battle. She asks Hypnos to put Zeus to sleep. Hypnos refuses at first. Last time he tried that, Zeus woke up furious and almost hurled him into the sea. Hera bribes him with a golden throne and a nymph bride, Pasithea. Hypnos agrees, but only with backup from Nyx, who even Zeus fears. They put Zeus to sleep, and the plan works. Hypnos didn't have a massive cult following. There were small shrines or statues dedicated to him in places like Sparta and Magnesia. He often appeared alongside Thanatos in funerary art. Sleep and death were seen as twins and comforts. In Orphic traditions, Hypnos was invoked during rites involving the soul's journey. In places like Epidaurus, a healing sanctuary of Asclepius, sleep, induced by Hypnos, was crucial. People would go into dream states called incubation to receive divine messages. Hypnos was symbolically present in these rituals, because healing dreams were thought to come through him. When Hypnos is depicted, he is sometimes shown as a young handsome man with wings, either on his back, shoulders, or even temples, and holding a poppy stem or a horn from which he pours sleep-inducing substances. He is usually reclining or gently putting someone to sleep with a soft touch. The next one is Charon. He is the ferryman of the death. He is better known as a daimon or spirit rather than a full-fledged god. He embodies a cosmic function, the passage between worlds, rather than a personality with desires or conflicts. Charon's main function is transporting souls across the rivers Styx or Acheron, to the Underworld, the realm of the dead. The souls either end up in the fields of Asphodel, Elysium, or Tartarus depending on how the soul is judged. Souls must pay Charon a coin, usually an obelisk or drachma, placed in the mouth of the deceased at burial. Without payment, the soul would be left to wander the banks for eternity. He is not evil, but rather a neutral figure performing a necessary duty in the cycle of life and death. Charon is like a threshold guardian, making sure no one enters or leaves the realm improperly. Some sources say that his father is Erebus, the god of darkness. His mother is Nyx, the goddess of night. Charon appears in several myths involving living mortals who travel to the underworld. The first myth is about Orpheus. Orpheus descends into the underworld to retrieve his wife, Eurydice. His music is so beautiful that Charon, normally stern and silent, agrees to ferry him. An unprecedented act of mercy. The second myth is about Hercules. On his 12th labor, Heracles must capture Cerberus. He uses force to threaten Charon into ferrying him across. Charon violates the rules and is punished by the gods, possibly imprisoned or whipped for allowing a living man to pass. When Charon is pictured, he is often shown as a grim, bearded man or sometimes a skeletal figure, dressed in tattered robes, piloting a skiff or boat. Later Roman and Renaissance art sometimes portrayed him more like the Grim Reaper. The next one is Hecate. She is the goddess of magic, ghosts, crossroads, and the moon. She holds a unique place in Greek mythology, straddling the line between Olympian power and underworld mystery. Hecate is often seen holding torches, keys, or accompanied by dogs, and she is usually depicted with 3 faces or forms, symbolizing her dominion over the past, present, and future. She symbolizes liminality. Hecate is the guardian of thresholds, literal and metaphorical. She rules the spaces between life and death, waking and dreaming, the known and the unknown. Witchcraft and magic. She is deeply associated with sorcery, necromancy, and the unseen forces of the world. Practitioners of magic invoked her for power, protection, and prophecy. Protection and guidance. Despite her dark associations, Hecate was seen as a powerful guide. She held keys to hidden knowledge and lit the way in darkness, literally, with her twin torches. In ancient Greek cosmology, Hecate is a bit of an enigma. She predates the Olympians and was honored even by Zeus, who gave her dominion over heaven, earth, and sea. but her real power lies in the spaces most feared and least understood, the crossroads and the underworld. Hecate is the daughter of the titans Perses and Asteria, giving her a celestial lineage. Her mother, Asteria, is a goddess of the stars and divination, which may explain Hecate's deep association with mystery and magic. Hecate's roles are many, but her presence is always a sign that boundaries are being crossed, from life into death, from ignorance into wisdom, from one phase into another. She is closely associated with ghosts and spirits, often guiding them or acting as an intermediary between the living and the dead. Offerings were left for her at crossroads during the Deepnon, the dark moon feast in her honor. Food, especially eggs, garlic, and fish, was given to appease her and ensure protection. Hecate is also linked to the goddess Persephone. When Hades abducted Persephone, Hecate was the one who heard her cries. Later, she became Persephone's companion in the underworld, guiding her through the seasonal cycle of death and rebirth. This relationship reinforces Hecate's role as a liminal figure, one who moves between worlds and brings others safely through. In later traditions, Hecate became deeply tied to witchcraft and magical rites. In the Greek magical papyri, she is invoked as the powerful triple-formed goddess, associated with howling dogs and torches. She is called upon to bind, to protect, to reveal, and to conceal. Her symbols include torches, to light the way through darkness; keys, to unlock secrets and transitions; dogs, especially black ones, seen as sacred to her and messengers of the spirit world; herbs like yew, belladonna, and garlic, used in spells and offerings. Hecate didn't have one central temple, but she was honored in private rituals and at household shrines, particularly near doorways and crossroads. The crossroads themselves were sacred to her, three-way paths where offerings were left and spirits were believed to gather. She appears in many myths as a silent but crucial force, a goddess whose presence empowers transformation, whose light guides through the unknown. Visually, Hecate is depicted as a woman with three bodies or three heads, sometimes human, sometimes animal, like dog, horse, or snake. She might carry a dagger, a torch, a key, or a rope, tools of magic in transition. Her presence is eerie, mysterious, and commanding. The seventh one is Erebus. He is the primordial god of darkness. His name literally means deep shadow or gloom in ancient Greek. He isn't a god with temples or thrones. Erebus is a cosmic force, and one of the first beings to exist in Greek myth. Erebus symbolizes primordial darkness. Erebus is the thick, inescapable gloom that surrounded the earliest state of the universe. He's not evil, just eternal, impersonal, and consuming. Transition. Erebus is both a being and a place, the first passageway of death, the darkness that souls enter after crossing the boundary of life. Creation through opposites. Together with Nyx, night, Erebus produces light, ether, and day, Hemera, showing that darkness isn't the end, it's the beginning of creation. Origins and family. From chaos, the primordial void, came Erebus and Nyx. With Nyx, Erebus fathered Ether, the divine light of the upper air; Hemera, the personification of day. Some traditions also say he helped father other abstract and chthonic forces like Hypnos, sleep; Thanatos, death; Moros, doom; Charon, ferryman of the dead; Nemesis, Eris, Apate, and more. Whether he sired them or they were Nyx's alone depends on the source, but Erebus is always linked to these mysterious, inescapable forces. Erebus is a place. In many myths and rituals, Erebus is also the name of a region of the underworld, not a final destination, but the dark gateway all souls pass through. Souls, guided by Hermes, would descend through Erebus on their way to the fields of Asphodel, Tartarus, punishment; or the Elysian fields, reward. Erebus is that blank void they pass through, empty, silent, and total. Myths and stories involving Erebus. Erebus is a background figure, but there are several myths and traditions where his presence or name is invoked. Myth number 1, the egg in the dark. Long ago, in a time before the world, Erebus and Nyx ruled the endless black. But something stirred in their shadows, something strange. In the middle of that darkness, a great silver egg formed. It glowed faintly, pulsing with potential. And one day, it cracked. From the egg came Phans, the shining god of life and creation. He brought with him time, order, and the first spark of the cosmos. So even though Erebus is darkness, he is not destruction. He is the cradle of creation, the quiet before the first heartbeat. Myth number 2, Odysseus walks the path of Erebus. When Odysseus needs to speak to the prophet Tiresias, he must travel to the land of the dead. He sails beyond the known world, to a place where the sun never rises. There, on the edge of the world, he digs a trench and pours out blood. The shadows gather. He is standing in Erebus, the dark veil of the underworld. Here, ghosts whisper and wail, drawn to the offering. One by one, they rise to speak. Odysseus is chilled not by what he hears, but by what surrounds him, that thick, ancient silence that even heroes fear. This isn't Hades' palace or Tartarus' pit, this is Erebus, the black threshold every soul must pass through. Myth number 3, the music that crossed Erebus. When Orpheus lost his beloved Eurydice, he descended into the underworld, guided by his grief and his lyre. As he played, his music drifted through Erebus, the cold shadows that guard the way to Hades. The dead paused. The darkness listened. Even Erebus, vast and unmoved, seemed to hold its breath as Orpheus passed. It was said that his melody was the only thing that ever made Erebus feel, not joy or sorrow, but a moment of still, aching beauty. Worship and depiction. Erebus had no cults, no altars, and no temples. He is a primordial, too vast and abstract to worship directly. You wouldn't pray to Erebus for help, you passed through him in death, or acknowledged him in ritual or poetry. He is rarely depicted in art, but when personified, Erebus is imagined as a shadowy male figure, often cloaked in black mist, or even formless. In literature, he's called the Black Veil or the Dark Womb. The 8th one is Melinoe. She is a mysterious goddess of ghosts, nightmares, and madness. Her presence is fleeting and unsettling, half seen in the dark, half felt in your bones. Melinoe is not a well-known deity, but her role is powerful and deeply haunting. She is the whisper in the dark, the shadow in your dream, the goddess of what lingers. Melinoe symbolizes phantom and illusion. Melinoe is the goddess who brings strange visions and ghostly apparitions. She walks among the living as a shade, causing fear, delirium, and hallucinations. Duality and uncertainty. In Orphic tradition, Melinoe is described as half black and half white, symbolizing both life and death, dream and nightmare, peace and terror. Fear that crosses boundaries. She doesn't just haunt the dead, she visits the living, especially at night. Melinoe is the feeling of being watched in the dark, the presence behind a dream, the chill that has no source. Origins and family. She is said to be the daughter of Persephone, and either Zeus or Hades, depending on the version. In Orphic myth, Zeus disguised himself as Hades to lay with Persephone. From that strange union came Melinoe, a child of light and shadow, of sky and death. In other interpretations, Hades is her true father, making her fully chthonic. Her siblings may include Zagreus, another mysterious underworld god; Macaria, goddess of blessed death; Hecate, goddess of witchcraft and crossroads. Role in ritual and belief. Melinoe is invoked with caution and reverence. She is not a goddess of worship in the traditional sense, there are no temples or festivals in her name. Instead, she appears in Orphic hymns, where she is called saffron-cloaked nymph of the earth, two-formed bringer of madness and fear. Her rituals were private, mystical, and deeply personal, aimed at protecting against hauntings, warding off nightmares, and purifying the soul from unseen forces. She is feared, but not evil. She brings madness but also teaches through fear. Myths and stories involving Mythology. Myth number 1. The Pale Maiden in the Night. It was said that Mythology wandered the world at night with a train of ghosts behind her. She didn't speak, she didn't have to. Her gaze alone could drive mortals into madness. Those who saw her couldn't agree on what they'd seen: a young girl, a corpse, a goddess, a hallucination. To keep her away, people left offerings or whispered hymns in the dark. Myth number 2. The Dream That Burns. In some Orphic rites, Mythology appears in dreams as a guide, or a tormentor. She can reveal hidden truths or twist memories into nightmares. Half her body gleams pale as the moon, the other black as ink. She speaks in riddles, shows visions of your death, or of the dead you've forgotten. Those who survive her touch never see the world the same again. Myth number 3. The Ghosts of the Riverbank. A village once suffered terrible visions: weeping shadows, voices in the trees, children waking up screaming. A wandering mystic said, "This is Mythology's path." The villagers poured milk and honey at the riverbank, offerings for the dead. That night, she came. Silent. Watching. By dawn, the visions ended, but the villagers always left offerings after that, just in case she returned. Symbolism and depiction. Mythology is rarely depicted in classical art, but when she is imagined, she is half light, half dark, split down the middle. Cloaked in saffron, a color used in magical rites and funerals. Surrounded by ghosts or shadows. Sometimes carrying a torch, like Hecate, but hers is dim, flickering, more aglow than a flame. She isn't the ruler of the dead. She is their voice, their memory, their echo. Worship and legacy. Mythology had no grand temples, no large cults. She was a mystery, hidden from common eyes, revered in secret rites. In modern times, Mythology has re-emerged in the practices of Hellenic polytheists, witchcraft and shadow work, dream interpreters and those who explore ancestral memory. She represents the power of dreams and nightmares, healing through fear and confrontation, the boundary between seen and unseen. You never know who might visit your dreams. The last one are the Eumenides. They are the goddesses of vengeance and sacred retribution. Their wrath is not random, it is precise, personal, and inevitable. They are not evil. They are the voice of the dead, the conscience of the living, and the terror of the guilty. Who are the Eumenides? The word Eumenides means the kindly ones, a name used out of fear and reverence. It's a euphemism, spoken to avoid drawing their wrath. Their true name is Erinyes, which likely comes from a root meaning to pursue or to punish. They are a trinity, 3 sisters, but more than mere individuals. They are a force of nature, acting as one. The 3 Furies are Alecto, she who never rests, punishes moral crimes like anger, pride, and cruelty. Tisiphone, avenger of murder, punishes blood crimes, especially within families. Megira, the jealous one, punishes betrayals of trust, especially marital and oath-breaking. Together, they uphold ancient, unbreakable laws, laws that even Zeus cannot defy. The Eumenides symbolize primordial justice. The Furies are older than the Olympians. Their justice is not the orderly law of courts and kings, but the raw, sacred balance of blood for blood, oath for oath, harm for harm. They represent the moral code of the cosmos. Divine vengeance. Their wrath is reserved for those who escape human justice, especially murderers, perjurers, abusers, and traitors to kin. They hunt the guilty across the world, whispering in dreams, appearing in visions, driving their victims to madness and despair. Conscience and guilt. They don't just punish physically. The Furies are the inner torment of the guilty. They appear in nightmares. They make wine taste like blood, food like ash. The voice you hear when no one else is speaking, that may be the Erinyes. Origins and family. There are several ancient accounts of their origin. In Hesiod's Theogony, they are born from the blood of Uranus, spilled on the earth when he was castrated by Kronos. From that blood came not only the Furies, but the giants and Melee, ash tree nymphs, all wild, untamed forces of nature. In other traditions, they are daughters of Nyx, night, or even Hades and Persephone, connecting them directly to the underworld. But in all stories, they are older than Olympus, more ancient than the structured world we know. They come from a time of raw elemental forces, and they have never been tamed. Appearance and iconography. The Furies are not beautiful, but terrifying and awe-inspiring. They are winged women, with wild black hair and serpents coiled around their heads and arms. Their eyes bleed tears of blood. Their voices are like howling winds and screeching birds. They carry whips, torches, and daggers. Their robes are dark, often stained with the blood of those they pursue. They are also associated with black dogs, bats, and owls, the scent of sulfur and rotting earth, sacred snakes that live in their sanctuaries. To see them is to be filled with dread, even if you are innocent. Myths and stories of the Eumenides. Myth number 1, the pursuit of Orestes. Orestes is one of the most tragic figures in Greek mythology. After his mother, Clytemnestra, murdered his father Agamemnon, Orestes is commanded by Apollo to avenge him by killing his own mother. He obeys. But this act, matricide, the killing of one's mother, is an unforgivable crime to the Furies. They rise from the earth, clawing through the soil, and begin their chase. Orestes flees across Greece, but they are always there. In his dreams, in his breath, in every silence. Finally, he reaches Athens, where Athena herself calls the first ever trial by jury, the Areopagus, to decide Orestes' fate. The trial ends in a tie. Athena casts the final vote, acquittal. The Furies are furious, until Athena offers them a new role. Not destroyers, but protectors of justice and order within the city. From then on, they are worshipped as the Eumenides, no longer feared enemies, but divine guardians of moral law. Myth number 2, the false oath. A man swore falsely on the river Styx, the most sacred oath in Greek tradition. He made promises to gods and mortals alike, then broke them without regret. At first, he prospered. His lies worked. But slowly, his sleep turned restless. He heard whispers in empty rooms. His children feared him. His servants quit. He began to see shadows in his reflection, and his food rotted in his mouth. The Furies had come. He died alone, crying out names he never remembered speaking. Myth number 3, sacred rituals of the Erinyes. In Attica, especially near Athens and Colonus, there were underground sanctuaries to the Furies. No one entered lightly. Offerings were made in absolute silence, often at night, and left in black bowls, milk, honey, or the blood of a black ram. In some cases, priests of homicide courts invoked them during murder trials, calling on the Furies to witness the truth. They weren't worshipped with joy or celebration, but with fear, awe, and trembling respect. The Furies in Roman myth. In Roman mythology, the Furies were called the Dairi, the Dread Ones. They appear in Virgil's Aeneid, sent by the gods to punish mortals and even to drive queens mad. Their presence remains the same, unrelenting, horrifying, and absolute. Final thoughts. The Eumenides are not gods you pray to, they are gods you hope never to meet. But in their terrifying pursuit lies something essential. A cosmic reminder that no crime is ever truly forgotten. That some oaths cannot be broken without consequence. That justice, though slow, always finds its voice. Thank you so much for watching. If you want more stories about ancient gods, spirits, and forgotten myths, let me know in the comments. Have a great day!